How does a man score 150 goals, thrill millions, and still walk away unfulfilled?
Surrounded by white shirts and still going. What a run by Ruud van Nistelrooy. What a goal this could be!
This is the story of Ruud van Nistelrooy, a striker who was Manchester United's ultimate goal machine.
It's a good early ball. Ruud van Nistelrooy doesn't miss. 30 seconds on the clock. Manchester United mean business. In that Manchester United penalty area, he could beat a goalkeeper blindfolded.
His brilliance was undeniable, his love for the club unwavering, but as much as he gave to Manchester United, it seemed fate was always a step ahead, slipping glory from his reach just as he reached for it. When Ruud joined United as a player, the club was riding high on a wave of success. 7 Premier League titles, a Champions League and 3 FA Cups in just over a decade. And after he left, United's trophy cabinet grew heavier, 5 more league titles and another Champions League. But in his 5 years at Old Trafford, despite his goal-scoring heroics, only a few trophies came his way. 1 Premier League title, 1 FA Cup, 1 League Cup. It was a haul far below what he deserved. Years later, Ruud returned to Manchester as part of Erik Ten Hag's coaching team. There was hope that perhaps this time he could make his mark from the sidelines, carving out a legacy that eluded him as a player. But once again, fate intervened. After just 4 games as interim manager, his time was cut short. Another chapter closed, leaving fans wondering, is Ruud van Nistelrooy truly the unlucky one, or is his story far from over? Our story begins in Os, a small town in the Netherlands. For a young Ruud van Nistelrooy, football wasn't just a game, it was a calling. He spent hours on the pitch, pushing himself beyond what was expected, constantly improving, and developing the grit that would define his career. Starting as a central midfielder, he brought both intelligence and creativity to the game. But his true calling lay in front of the goal. Ruud's journey took him from Den Bosch to Heerenveen, where he began to attract attention for his natural instincts and tireless work ethic. But it was his time at PSV Eindhoven that transformed him into a goal-scoring sensation. Moved up from midfield to a forward position, he adapted quickly, finding a rhythm that would make him one of Europe's most sought-after strikers. With a scoring consistency that was impossible to ignore, Ruud became the Eredivisia's top scorer, drawing eyes from some of Europe's biggest clubs. Among those watching was Manchester United. At the time, United was the pinnacle of English football, a club that had just won an unprecedented treble and was looking for new stars to carry the torch. Sir Alex Ferguson, United's legendary manager, saw something special in Ruud. He saw a player who embodied the hunger, resilience, and relentless drive that defined Manchester United. In the summer of 2000, United moved to secure Ruud's talent, preparing to bring him to Old Trafford for a record-breaking fee. But fate intervened. Just days before the deal was finalised, Ruud suffered a devastating knee injury, a torn ACL that would keep him sidelined for a year. What should have been his breakthrough moment turned into a year of grueling rehab, a year of waiting, a year of wondering if he would ever get the chance to fulfill his dream.
I remember Sir Alex Ferguson called me when the deal was cancelled, and he phoned me up and he said, "Don't worry, Ruud, once you'll be a Manchester United player." And I really appreciated the kindness, you know, the phone call. After 9 months, I came back like an animal, you know.
Most players would have crumbled under the weight of such a setback. But Ruud van Nistelrooy wasn't most players. He attacked his recovery with the same relentless determination he brought to the pitch, pushing through the pain, proving to himself and the world that he could come back even stronger. By the summer of 2001, he was ready. Sir Alex Ferguson and Manchester United didn't hesitate. They welcomed Ruud with open arms, confident in his ability to deliver on his promise. The expectations were immense. Ruud was joining a team with a towering legacy, a club that had reigned supreme in English football for a decade. He wasn't just here to score goals, he was expected to lead, to inspire, to keep the United legacy alive, and from his very first match, it was clear he was ready for the challenge. Ruud's impact was immediate. In his debut season, he was unstoppable, scoring 23 goals in 32 league games. His power, his precision, his almost supernatural ability to find the back of the net, it all made him an instant fan favourite. He was more than just a striker. He was a symbol of everything United fans cherished: tenacity, hunger, and a willingness to give everything on the pitch. In those early years, Ruud shattered records and set new standards. He became the first player to score in 8 consecutive Premier League games, a feat that showcased his consistency and his ability to thrive under pressure. For United fans, he was more than a goal scorer. He was their new hero, someone who could bring them back to the glory they craved. In his second season, Ruud elevated his game even further. With 25 league goals, he won the Golden Boot, and United, lifted by his performances, reclaimed the Premier League title from their fierce rivals, Arsenal. Game after game, Ruud delivered when it mattered most, scoring in each of the final 8 games to secure the title on the last day. For United, it was a return to glory, a reminder of their resilience. And for Ruud, it was redemption, proof that he wasn't just a scorer, but a champion. In all competitions, Ruud scored a staggering 44 goals in 52 games. It was a season of personal and collective triumph, one that seemed to signal the beginning of a golden era for both Ruud and Manchester United.
Ruud, you've won your first bit of silverware in England and you've got that golden boot you were after as well.
I mean, it's been a marvellous year, it's unbelievable. You see this, everybody's so happy. We won the league now. That was the big thing, and we're just over the moon now.
I certainly thought he'd get stronger because last year, this time from February last year, he was a tired player. And that's the result of his first season in England, having recovered from a cruciate knee operation.
But football is unpredictable, and even in his greatest moments, challenges were waiting just around the corner. The 2003 to 2004 season would test Ruud's mettle in ways he could never have anticipated. Arsenal, fueled by their rivalry with United, embarked on a historic unbeaten run, while Ruud found himself at the heart of one of the fiercest rivalries in English football. In September 2003, during what would become known as the Battle of Old Trafford, United faced Arsenal in a match that would go down in history. In the final minutes of the game, with the score deadlocked, Ruud stepped up to take a penalty. It was a chance to end Arsenal's unbeaten streak, a chance to seize victory, but his shot missed, ricocheting off the crossbar. In that instant, he became the target of Arsenal's fury. Players surrounded him, taunting and jeering, and the incident escalated into chaos. Ruud had become a symbol of United's rivalry with Arsenal, a lightning rod for their animosity. For Ruud, this moment was more than just a missed penalty. It was a painful reminder of how close victory could be, only to slip away at the last moment. United finished third that season, and Arsenal went on to lift the trophy, completing their season as the Invincibles. Unbeaten and triumphant, it was a bitter season for Ruud, who had given everything, only to watch his efforts overshadowed by a single, heartbreaking miss. The 2004 to 2005 season brought new challenges. Jose Mourinho made a powerful entrance into the Premier League with Chelsea, and with Wayne Rooney now joining United, the dynamics within the team began to shift. Ruud, who had been the backbone of United's attack, now faced new competition, and the pressure to perform was greater than ever. But just as the season began, injuries took their toll, sidelining him during critical matches. For Ruud, the pain of being sidelined was almost unbearable. Watching United struggle from the stands, seeing Chelsea claim the league title with unprecedented dominance, was a difficult chapter in his journey. His injuries forced him to confront a reality he hadn't faced before, that even the strongest players are vulnerable, that even his relentless spirit had its limits. By the 2005 to 2006 season, Ruud was back in form, scoring in the first 4 games of the league. He finished the season as the league's second highest scorer with 21 goals. But behind the scenes, tensions were simmering. Cristiano Ronaldo, a rising star within the squad, brought new energy to United, and the balance within the team began to shift. Ruud's intense competitiveness, which had driven him to become one of United's most prolific scorers, now created friction. A training ground dispute with Ronaldo marked a turning point.
I know that I was wrong in that situation. And I immediately walked into the dressing room and I sat next to him in the dressing room and apologized for my behavior when I calmed down.
Soon after, Sir Alex Ferguson made the difficult decision to bench him for the final games of the season. For Ruud, it was a bitter blow. He had given his all to United, and yet he found himself watching from the sidelines, feeling as though his chapter was closing too soon. In the summer of 2006, Ruud left for Real Madrid, ending his United career with 150 goals in 219 games. But as he departed, there was a sense that something was left unfinished, a legacy both complete and incomplete. The goals were there, but the titles he had dreamed of were few. He left as a legend, but one whose journey felt somehow incomplete. In the summer of 2024, Manchester United called him back, this time to join Erik Ten Hag's team as an assistant coach. It was a new role, a new chapter, and for Ruud, a chance to give back to the club that had meant so much to him. Fans were thrilled. They saw in his return a glimmer of hope that perhaps, one day, he could be the one to lead United back to the top. But Ruud wasn't just a familiar face. He had become a man of experience, shaped by his journey, both the triumphs and the heartbreaks. As he returned to Old Trafford, he brought with him not only the knowledge of a great striker, but the wisdom and resilience of a leader. This was a man who had faced it all, from the fierce rivalries to the personal battles, and now he stood ready to pass on that strength to a new generation. When Erik Ten Hag was dismissed mid-season, Ruud stepped up as interim manager. For a brief, shining moment, it felt as though he had finally come full circle. His first game in charge was a victory, and the fans' cheers echoed through Old Trafford, just as they had years before when he scored goal after goal. In those few short weeks, Ruud's presence breathed life into the club, and many hoped that he would stay on as an assistant coach.
And as a closure of this block of 4 games, it felt like a closure for that period, and the future is open. That's the way I felt it, and it was a moment. It was a beautiful moment to be able to share that with the supporters, and yeah, special.
A legend of a club like Manchester. He did a great job. I have to talk with him tomorrow, and then I will explain everything. I'm very clear, and I will tell you like it is.
I think the manager, it's not an easy transition to go in and have the sitting next to you on the sidelines.
One of the most prolific
strikers. The fans love him. They loved him before, love him even more now. And any turn of results or bumps in the road, I'll get Ruud in as a manager.
But fate, once again, had other plans. After 4 games, Ruud's role was cut short. Ruben Amorim, the club's new permanent head coach, decided he needed a fresh start, a clean slate with his own team. It was a decision that was perhaps necessary, yet one that felt harsh to the fans, who saw Ruud as part of the club's soul. For a second time, he was walking away from Manchester United, and for a second time, it felt incomplete. When Ruben Amorim decided to start fresh, it wasn't personal. In football, sometimes sentiment has to be set aside, and a manager must build their team from the ground up. It's a difficult truth that many in the sport understand. But for the fans, letting Ruud go was more than a managerial decision. It was the end of a dream they had held on to for years. The dream of Ruud helping United back to greatness. It was a painful reality for supporters, yet perhaps it was for the best. Ruben Amorim, a man with his own vision, needed to establish a new path forward, free from the shadow of United's past. And as much as Ruud had given to the club, his presence was inextricably tied to a different era. For Ruben Amorim to truly succeed, he needed to begin without the weight of history, and Ruud understood this. With grace and quiet dignity, he accepted the decision, leaving the door open for his own journey to continue elsewhere. Before he left, Ruud hinted that his story with Manchester United might not be over. In interviews, he spoke about his dream of returning to lead the club, this time as head coach. And while it was hard to walk away, he knew this departure wasn't necessarily a goodbye. It was simply a pause. In the brief time he held the reins, Ruud demonstrated qualities that would make any club consider him for a managerial role. His calm, his understanding of the game, and his connection with players were all clear for the world to see. For United fans, the hope remains that one day Ruud van Nistelrooy will return once more, this time to finish the story. As Ruud walked away from Old Trafford for the second time, his legacy stood unchanged. He may not have lifted every trophy, but he had lifted spirits, inspired fans, and given the club a symbol of resilience. To United supporters, he wasn't just a player. He was an embodiment of what it meant to fight, to persevere, and to play with heart. In every goal, in every moment of passion on the pitch, Ruud had left a piece of himself. And while titles are the usual measure of success, Ruud's legacy was always about more. He was the player who gave everything for the badge, a figure who, even in defeat, held his head high. For Manchester United fans, he was a legend, not because of the trophies, but because of the loyalty and determination he showed year after year. Some might call Ruud unlucky, a legend whose career didn't deliver the titles his efforts deserved. But was it luck? Or was his legacy meant to be something more? Beyond silverware, beyond statistics, Ruud's story resonates because it speaks to something universal. The idea that success is not always measured by what we win, but by what we give. Ruud's career at United is a tale of near misses, close calls, and moments where fate seemed to intervene. Yet, he never faltered. He kept pushing, kept fighting, refusing to let circumstances define him. And in the end, that's what makes his story unforgettable. He was a player who poured everything into his journey, knowing that some battles would be lost, but believing that the fight itself was worth it. As Ruud leaves once more, his connection to Manchester United is far from severed. His words linger. One day, he hopes to return to lead the club. For the fans, this isn't just a hopeful statement. It's a promise that Ruud's legacy is not yet finished, that his journey with Manchester United is still unfolding. Even if it's taken a pause, there's something timeless about Ruud's story. A story that transcends eras, rivalries, and statistics. It's a story about a man who gave his heart to a club, not once, but twice, who faced every challenge with unyielding spirit, and who walked away with his head held high, knowing that sometimes being a legend isn't about the trophies you lift, it's about the legacy you leave. So, as he steps away from the pitch once more, Ruud van Nistelrooy leaves behind a legacy not measured by medals, but by the memories he created and the passion he inspired. His story is one of resilience, of unbreakable loyalty, and of dreams that, even when deferred, are never truly extinguished. Some might call him the unluckiest legend, but to those who watched him, he will always be a hero.